True leadership is the ability to perform under pressure and overcome setbacks, to lead others to achieve what most would see as impossible, to deliver critical results when they are needed most. This year's leadership honoree, Dr. Peter Marks, has demonstrated this ability throughout his career, and our healthcare ecosystem is all the better for it. But his leadership was put to its greatest test in the COVID pandemic. Facing enormous pressure to advance and approve novel vaccines for COVID-19 in the face of a mounting body count and a collapsing world economy, Dr. Marks remained steadfast and committed to working with his colleagues at FDA with due urgency to look for ways to streamline the process without compromising the rigorous evaluation of efficacy and safety required before providing emergency use authorization for vaccines that would soon be used in hundreds of millions of Americans and billions more worldwide. This was achieved with speed, professionalism, and without compromise. The astonishing work done by FDA, Pfizer-BioNTech, Moderna, J&J, and so many others to discover, develop, and approve COVID-19 vaccines literally changed the world and saved countless lives and prevented countless more from falling sick. This was truly FDA's finest hour, and once again showed the world the true value of our national investment in biological, medical, and regulatory science. We are proud of all the dedicated professionals throughout the ecosystem who made this happen, but in particular, we recognize Peter's outstanding leadership this evening. We are so fortunate that we had the right leader in the right place at the right time when our country and world so desperately needed him. Peter Marks joined the FDA in 2012 as Deputy Director of CBER and became Center Director in January 2016. His work at the helm of the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research extends far beyond the pandemic. Under his leadership, FDA has granted landmark approvals for novel treatments, including the first CAR T cell therapy for advanced cancer and the first gene therapies available in the USA for a rare form of childhood blindness and spinal muscular atrophy, a devastating neurological illness of infants, dramatically changing the lives of thousands of our most vulnerable patients and stimulating new investment and research in these revolutionary fields. Peter understands the need for regulatory and manufacturing frameworks that improve efficiency in development of these therapies so that manufacturing costs can be significantly reduced, enabling more investment in gene therapies for small patient populations and to allow greater affordability of these high-tech therapies for patients throughout the US and around the world. Under Dr. Marks' leadership, the center has also issued several critical guidances that have helped sponsors get products to patients. Key among them has been the establishment of the Regenerative Medicine Advanced Therapy designation for cell therapies or therapeutic tissue engineering products, or human cell and tissue products as directed by the landmark 21st Century's Cure Act. Peter Marks and his team rolled out the program within weeks of the Act's passage, which allowed for life-saving therapies to be delivered to patients in a timelier manner. His vision serves to enhance the work of the FDA. He's committed to the need for enhanced dialogue between product developers and regulators that has long defined FDA's approach and was further refined to great effect during the pandemic, enhancing FDA's mandate to increase public health and help bring new life-saving products to patients in need. Dr. Marks, everyone joining us tonight, scientists, researchers, regulators, patient advocates, policymakers, and most of all patients, are grateful for your vision and your dedication to the field of regulatory science. We thank you for your outstanding service. I'm pleased and honored to present on behalf of the Reagan-Udall Foundation for FDA this year's Innovation in Regulatory Science Leadership Award to Dr. Peter Marks.
I want to sincerely thank the Reagan-Udall Foundation for the FDA for the honor of this Innovations in Regulatory Science Award in the category of leadership. In reflecting on what matters most about this award, it is that it's really a recognition of all of those who have worked tireless at the FDA in support of the public health during the pandemic, both in the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, the other centers of the agency, and in the offices of the Chief Counsel and the Commissioner. Our staff have been working together continuously during the entire pandemic in support of public health. At times, this has literally been 7 days a week around the clock. And that's well documented by the document and email trail between us. It's been a long journey that we've taken together, negotiating many challenges that have arisen along the way. For vaccines, our work has been particularly challenging, as not only have we had to address the scientific issues, but also those of combating disinformation and distrust to work toward better acceptance of something that is truly sort of a medical miracle. The development of highly effective vaccines in record time, along with the refinement of their use. What has kept us focused is the knowledge that the American people put their trust in us to ensure that the devices, drugs, and biologics that the agency authorizes or approves meet our high standards for safety and effectiveness, ensuring that the products are safe for every individual and their loved ones. The trust that we feel helps us get up every day and vigorously pursue the work toward bringing this pandemic towards a close. Let me conclude by once again expressing my gratitude to the Reagan-Udall Foundation for this award, but also by expressing my deepest appreciation to the entire staff at FDA that has been involved in the pandemic response. It's important for me to take this opportunity to recognize that their tireless efforts have helped save countless lives, and we are so grateful for all of their efforts. Thank you again for this honor.
Peter, I'm happy to be the first to congratulate you on your Innovations in Regulatory Science Leadership Award. It is so well deserved. From your leadership on COVID-19 vaccines, which is helping to lead our country out of the pandemic, to your work to advance bespoke gene therapies for patients with very rare diseases. You are that unique combination of a true visionary and a person who is willing to roll up his sleeves to get the job done. It was an honor to work by your side as your Chief of Staff in CBER on these important efforts, and I'm thrilled to continue to count you as a colleague and a friend. Your dedication to FDA as an institution and its mission to protect and promote the public health, and your willingness to always innovate and think outside the box to get there are admirable and an inspiration to others. Congratulations again.
Good evening. I'm Christy Boutte, and I'm pleased to present this year's Innovation Award. In the earliest days of the pandemic, researchers and policymakers seeking to better understand the coronavirus faced numerous obstacles due to the fragmented nature of the data relevant to their research. The development of diagnostics, treatments, and vaccines relied on access to real-world data. To address the need, a group of more than 20 healthcare organizations worked together to launch the COVID-19 Research Database, a secure repository of HIPAA-compliant, de-identified, and limited patient-level data sets made available at no cost to public health and policy researchers. The database's governance framework is a remarkable innovation implemented at an unheard of speed and scale that enables the availability of large, secure, real-world data sets. It established a process to vet and approve research projects and provide research the appropriate fit-for-purpose data for their work, and was created with an embedded statistical certification service that reviews and decertifies the de-identified data. It has unlocked 85 billion records covering over 250 million unique individuals and made that incredible data set available to a research community conducting critical observational research on epidemiology, pharmacoepidemiology, population health, and much more. Hundreds of research teams using the database for their work represent all 30 of the top academic medical centers, the CDC, NIH, as well as state governments and think tanks. The database's framework for governance is a critical innovation that deserves to be highlighted for its contributions to COVID-19 evidence building and as an exemplar for other critical diseases and regulatory areas, as well as a blueprint for further public-private collaborations. In nominating the COVID-19 research database for this year's Innovation Award, Claire Cravero of Datavant explained, the COVID research database governance process has completely changed what the real-world data community understood to be possible. It is my honor to present the COVID-19 research database with our 2021 Innovations in Regulatory Science Award for Innovation. Now Brennan, founding member of the COVID-19 Research Database Governance Committee, and Dr. Mark Cullen, chairman of its Scientific Steering Committee, are accepting the award. Congratulations.
Well, I'd like to thank my colleagues at the Reagan-Udall Foundation, at the FDA, for recognizing the work that our consortium has been able to do over the past year to try and mitigate the pandemic with data. Even more importantly, I'd like to thank the numerous colleagues, professionals at all levels, in the many consortium partners who've made it possible for this to proceed in a seamless and very high quality fashion. I spent 40 years in the academic sector, the last 5 years of which devoted almost exclusively to an effort to try and produce a platform in which highly valuable, linkable, granular level longitudinal data could be assembled in a way that would allow for a significant research in using real world data among my colleagues at Stanford and academicians around the country and around the world. So you can well imagine how excited I was when I was approached very shortly after the pandemic began by this consortium of private companies looking to set up a research database similar to the one I'd envisioned, but highly directed towards solving real world data needs as the pandemic evolved. The quality of the data that were available from the member companies was extraordinary to me, having spent 5 years looking for such data. The willingness of the partners to both participate in the provision of that data and in the governance of that data was an unimaginable achievement from my point of view. And then the seamless operations that the team was able to produce, HCCI and Datavant being two companies whose particular roles were enormous in this, but virtually all of the contributing companies on the both tech side and on the data side performed remarkably well, making it possible in many cases to move literally within a 3-week span between application for data use and provision of those data. But perhaps in the end of the day, more than virtually anything, for a database that was set up without reimbursement at a total pro bono system, I was amazed with the energy, the enthusiasm for solving the problems of COVID using real world data, which was evident in all of the partners, all of the member companies, and by all those who worked so hard to make it happen. And this allowed the data to go literally to thousands of users with hundreds of research projects going on, scores of publications over the 18 months, and many, many more in the wings. And perhaps most important of all, the ability to share that data with public agencies like the FDA. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's with really great pleasure and gratitude that I accept this award on behalf of many, many collaborators associated with the COVID-19 research database. When the pandemic hit, we knew that there was a crucial and pressing need for as many researchers as possible to be able to access data in order to accelerate discovery and insight into how we would fight and manage our way through the pandemic. And so we were able to, with the help of our organizer, Datavant, but our many, many data partners, including Change Healthcare, Symphony, Veradigm, Health Jump, and many more, to be able to really rapidly make this data available, build a secure, privacy protected governance framework around the data, a lean and rapid application process for researchers to get access to the data, and then let them go and do all the incredible work that they did. So it's really, it took a village, and we're so delighted that we could be recognized at this important forum. I think most importantly is the fact that so much high impact research has been produced through this collaborative over the next 18 months. And we really hope that this provides a model or a basis for greater access to data more generally for researchers, not just for COVID-19 research, but for research into a host of the other pressing topics that we face as a nation, whether that's other specific diseases or addressing health equity and health disparities, which are obviously also very much at the front of everybody's mind right now. So once again, thank you very much. We are deeply honored and grateful.
I'm Lynn Zajdowski, and I'm honored to present this year's Advocacy and Policy Award. We present this award in recognition of the important role that advocacy plays in accelerating innovation and modernizing regulatory practice to strengthen the safety and efficacy of health and consumer products. I cannot think of a more deserving person than the Honorable Patrick Kennedy. Patrick Kennedy, a politician, a policymaker, author, and one of the world's leading advocates on mental health and substance abuse. Elected to Congress 7 times, Patrick was the lead author of the landmark Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, requiring insurers and employers to cover treatment for mental health and substance use disorders no more restrictively than treatment for other illnesses of the body. In his own words, the Mental Health Parity Act is the equivalent of the Medical Civil Rights Act, a brain disease equal rights amendment, the legal end of discrimination that's at the heart of stigma of brain disease. Patrick also authored and co-authored and sponsored dozens of bills during his time in Congress to increase the understanding and treatment of neurological and psychiatric disorders. As Patrick often says, we must end the separate and unequal treatment of mental health and addiction and ensure each of us is able to achieve a full and meaningful life. In 2015, Patrick co-authored the New York Times bestseller, A Common Struggle, a personal journey through the past and future of mental illness and addiction, which tells his deeply personal story and details a bold plan for the future of mental health care in America. Patrick openly shares his personal story to demonstrate how we as a nation can be a healthier, more compassionate society by building a greater understanding and awareness in mental health and substance use issues, and to change the public perception of mental health and addiction. And he shares this story because he wants others who struggle with mental health and substance use to know that they're not alone in this fight. Since his earliest days in public service, Patrick Kennedy has believed that mental health should be a national priority. In 2017, he was appointed to the President's Commission on Combating Drug Addiction and the Opioid Crises, a crisis that unmistakably reflects the unfortunate ongoing failure of our government, industry, and public health infrastructure to connect those in need of critical addiction and mental illness services to high quality care. In 2013, he founded the Kennedy Forum, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to lead a national dialogue on transforming mental health and addiction care delivery by uniting advocates, business leaders, government agencies, and philanthropy around a common set of principles, including full implementation of the federal parity law. The Kennedy Forum aims to achieve health equity by advancing evidence-based practices, policies, political will, and programming in mental health and addiction treatment. For nearly a decade, Patrick Kennedy has worked tirelessly to inform and unite government officials and agencies, facilitating policy around prevention and treatment of mental health and substance use disorders. In partnership with philanthropic organizations, he has helped shine a spotlight on the need for social change and has developed and nurtured relationships with some of the most innovative companies, uniting change makers to help advance evidence-based practices and technology to achieve the goal of health equity. Advocacy is the fuel that powers lasting change, and through impactful campaigns and resources developed in collaboration with nonprofit organizations, Patrick Kennedy and the Kennedy Forum have lived out this statement, inspiring and empowering countless people to speak out about mental health and addiction. Innovative and holistic solutions will be essential if we're to experience meaningful and comprehensive change and revolutionize the way addiction and mental health are understood and treated. Patrick's life work represents important steps towards improving federal policy, accelerating the development of groundbreaking medicines that treat addiction and mental health disorders, and actualizing evidence-based treatment models that provide a full continuum of care for people suffering from addiction. Patrick, you are an inspiration for all, and your passion is contagious. We thank you for your openness, your honesty, and the countless hours you spend to break the stigma and bring awareness to mental health and addiction. You give us hope. I am truly honored on behalf of the Reagan-Udall Foundation for the FDA to present Patrick Kennedy the 2021 Innovation and Regulatory Science Award for Policy and Advocacy.
Thank you so much, Reagan-Udall Foundation, for this honor. I really accept it on behalf of all those who are advocating for the kinds of changes in the way our government responds to this epidemic of mental illness and addiction. We need changes throughout the federal government, and I appreciate the Reagan-Udall Foundation really pushing a new agenda for our illnesses of mental illness and addiction as it relates to the FDA, and really the emergency use of many medications that previously might just be put on hold for years and years. And we just don't have that time. And like within the HIV/AIDS struggles, failure is not an option. We need to get newer therapies to the subtypes of populations within these great diagnoses that really don't have much relevance to the type of particular set of factors that would make some people more responsive to interventions than others. We need to curtail and focus our therapies to those subtypes of depression, anxiety, addictions, where therapies work for those subtypes. Because the thing as advocates we're trying to get over is that one-size-fits-all approach, whether it be through mental health one-size-fits-all approaches, or whether it be biomedical therapeutics, which because of the necessity of these clinical trials and the way that they are organized and where success is defined, really limits our ability to find those therapeutics that actually can be enormously helpful to percentages of those in the clinical trials rather than a majority of those in the clinical trials. And we shouldn't be writing off that finite percentage of these people who suffer, for example, within the broader diagnosis of depression, just because they can't find out that many of their colleagues in these trials are really seeing the same benefit that they are. Because as we are learning from science, not all depression is the same. It follows a spectrum of various types of etiology and genetic components and metabolomic, phenomic, proteomic kinds of layers of science. That means that FDA needs to be much more specific in determining the endpoints for this research, and needs to be very intentional that that if a therapy is out there and can work with just a percentage of those for whom fall under the bigger description of depression, that doesn't mean that that therapy is a failure. It may not work for the others, but if it works for some, let's make sure that therapy gets to those that it works for. I appreciate the opportunity to accept this award, and also to say that if we could organize ourselves around the COVID pandemic to field vaccinations in record time, and thank God the FDA did that, then where is the urgency to us being able to do the same thing for another epidemic in our public health? And that is the epidemic of suicide and overdose, and the enormous disability that is created from and frankly exacerbated by COVID. And in much the same way as we just really exhibited urgency in determining that we were going to get to a vaccination, we need to exhibit that same sense of urgency. In much the same way we passed the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, it was about making sure that we treat these illnesses with the same parity of urgency that we treat other previous public health crises like HIV/AIDS, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and COVID. We need that urgency with these illnesses. Too many of our fellow Americans are dying, and I appreciate the Reagan-Udall Foundation in really acting as an ombudsman for the public interest within the FDA to better respond to the urgent need of patients out there who need the FDA to help meet their needs, which are so urgent. So thank you so much for all that you do, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to advocate on behalf of these issues that we all care so much about.